Then Pilate entered the headquarters. Imagine Pilate's headquarters. You can picture it, can't you? This space where Pilate summoned Jesus. In my imagination, it's a huge room. Sconces on stone walls, with those burning torches. Yeah. You look over, and there's a raised platform along one side with a chair for Pilate. Behind the chair, there's a marble statue of Caesar. And as you look around the room, you notice beautiful area Persian rugs, ornate tables and chairs, everything speaking of the power and privilege of the Roman Empire. Pilate comes into the room through a large archway. Trumpets herald his arrival. He's accompanied by 24 soldiers with swords hanging from their belts. He walks up on that platform. He takes his seat, surrounded by all these guards and courtiers, well-dressed, officials, maybe his wife and his family. There's a buzz of conversation because an emperor has arrived, a Roman ruler. And then way across the room, through a very small door, enters the prisoner, Jesus, pushed into the room by the guards, roughed up by the authorities. His face shows the wear of the 12 hours or so that it's been since he was jailed after being betrayed by his friend Judas. In contrast to the ornate surroundings of Pilate's headquarters, Jesus looks peasant-like. His clothes are simple, common. He's much more accustomed to the dusty roads and small villages than he is of the opulence of Pilate's headquarters. As the interrogation proceeds, Pilate, I think with a sneer, asks him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus looks around the headquarters, just as you have, noticing the many ways that Roman power and authority are represented in the room. And looks around, he says, "My kingdom is not of this world." And with those words, he tells us everything we need to know on this Sunday, the Sunday next before Advent, the feast of the reign of Christ, sometimes known as the Feast of Christ the King. Because today the church wants us to notice the difference between how God reigns and how the world's authorities reign. The first thing to notice, of course, is that Christ's reign is not through the exercise of power. There's an old hymn that includes the lines, "For not with swords loud clashing or roll of stirring drums, but deeds of love and mercy, the heavenly kingdom comes." That's the point of today. And that's really the distillation of the message of Jesus. Jesus holds out an alternative vision. He invites his followers then and now to see the world differently than the forces of empire do then and now. We see what's important immediately in the empire represented by Pilate's headquarters. It's domination. It's displaying wealth. It's the sword. Jesus' alternative vision calls out compassion, forgiveness, understanding, mercy, and love. The contrast is drawn really clearly in this morning's gospel reading. Pilate with his political, worldly power, and Jesus, the suffering servant. Now, not much has changed in the 2,000 or so years since this encounter in Pilate's headquarters. Even today, we live in a culture fixated on power and wealth. And our beloved church, the Anglican Church, has become comfortable with places of power and privilege. I mean, Church of England archbishops crowned the British monarchs. Canadian Anglicans supported policies of assimilation for Indigenous people. And hey, I'm not excluding myself from this. I grew up with privilege. Heck, being a white male gives you privilege in this world. I've been very comfortable in fine places. But deep down I know, and I think you know, that God doesn't reign in palaces and mansions. God's reign is in the human heart, especially as we seek for justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God, with the one who suffered, with Jesus Christ, the servant king. The American poet and pastor Steve Garness Holmes writes this, meditating on this passage. My kingdom is not of this world, looking around at the trappings of power, not of this world, not this kind of world, the world of fear and domination, of power and violence, the world of privilege and exclusion, of hierarchies and judgment, a world of the deserving. My world, thinking in Jesus, is the world of grace and mystery, a world of fierce kindness and tender beauty. And he writes this, I love this. My love sneaks past all guards, escapes all armies, evades your stoutest defenses. The realm of grace infuses this world, seeps through every dimension of it, and prevails forever. The realm of God's grace infuses this world, not with swords and clashing and roll of stirring drums, but deeds of love and kindness and mercy. The church is to be, I believe, a place where we experience this, this reign of Christ. Communities, parish communities like this one, they live at the intersection of Pilate's world and Jesus' world. Here in the Christian community, we can step back and look critically at how Pilate's world is manifested today in the culture of late-stage capitalism. Here in this community, and so many other communities from coast to coast to coast, here we seek to practice the ways of Jesus' reign. We seek to see each person as a beloved child of God. And we seek to regard each and every moment of our lives as a gift. Here, apart from the distractions of the 24-hour news cycle and the constant presence of the digital world, We lean into realities more ancient and true than what the internet offers. Here, we can experience the living presence of the power that's at the heart of the universe, the power of love. And even though it can be a challenge, we know, to drag ourselves out of bed on a cloudy November Sunday morning, when we're here, we know we're in a place to practice the ways of love and the ways of the reign of Christ. Denise Anderson, who's a minister in the Presbyterian Church of the U.S., writes, "When we love our neighbors as ourselves, when we do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God, and when we care for the afflicted and stand up for the oppressed, then we count ourselves as citizens of Jesus' unique kingdom." So, here at St. George's, over the last couple of days, many of us have spent some time together in a time of reflection and conversation to discern how the Spirit is leading this congregation into the future. We had a closing circle yesterday, and those who stayed through to the end, and most everybody did, expressed their appreciation for this place. There was really good energy coming out of this time. There was I perceived a genuine spirit of honesty in looking at who you are and where you are now and what steps you need to take to continue to be a light in a darkened world. I perceived a great openness to feeling the winds of God propelling you in new and different ways of being part of the reign of Christ. Feeling those winds, more subtle, but in some ways stronger than a bomb cyclone, pushing us gently into a future. You know, I spend a good deal of my time these days with lay leaders and clergy across Canada as we all face the reality of the decline of the institutional church as we have known it. You completed, many of you, a survey, and it revealed a reality that's known across North America and Western Europe. Church people are older. We're grayer. We're balder, with fewer and fewer younger people in this circle. Now, this decline has been with us for most of my life. The statistics show it sort of began around 1965, 66. There's nothing new here. But it seems to be advancing more quickly and noticeably in the last 5 years or so, particularly since the pandemic. The pandemic didn't cause it, but it accelerated it. I mean, if you don't have to roll out of bed on Sunday morning, you can turn on your computer and come to some worship anywhere in the world. If you want to go at all, it's kind of inviting. When I look around the Canadian church and the Episcopal Church in the US, I notice more and more that some of our buildings resemble pilots' headquarters, you know? And some of our structures, our governance structures, they're borrowed from the ruling classes. Gosh, we've got laws and committees and org charts and all that sort of stuff. I understand, I may have worked with that for a long time in my life. But I wonder sometimes if the decline of the institutional church isn't our mistake. I think we can feel guilty and grieve a bit about it, but maybe God's working through that. Maybe God's working through it to reduce our reliance on those structures and draw us back into the force field of Jesus Christ. I've reluctantly, but I believe faithfully, come to the view that we're not called to save the institutional church, but we're called as Christians have been for centuries, to do what that community has always done, to gather around the scriptures, to be a community that sings together, to break bread and share it both at the holy table and in the tables in our communities, to bless wine and drink it, to refresh our souls, because our souls can get so tired with the daily news, elections, events. To be reminded that as we leave this holy gathering, that we're part of the reign of Christ, not in the church, but in the worlds of work and families and friends, to strive for justice and peace and to respect the dignity of every human being. We're called to be always moving with the winds of God, to take our part in building a new earth where the fountains of life flow, revealing the promise of new life for all people. So thank you for welcoming me among you this weekend. What a joy and privilege it's been. You've taught me a lot about how to be together openly, honestly, freely. Even though I didn't go to any of the formal groups yesterday, for those of you who were there, I had so many good conversations yesterday. You care about this place. You care about God's community. You want this place to prosper in whatever way it can. My hope and prayer is that you will take courage from this weekend to face into whatever the future brings you as you seek to be a place not of that world, like Pilate's world, but a place that is a sign of the reign of Christ that we believe is breaking into our lives, even now.